In 2005, a contestant named Paula Goodspeed walked into an American Idol audition with an intense fixation on Judge Paula Abdul. The judge later claimed she already knew exactly who Goodspeed was and had begged producers not to let her inside. They ignored her warning, and what followed became one of the darkest stories in talent show history. By 2005, Idol had become one of the biggest shows in America. Contestants first had to pass through several earlier rounds, and some of the weakest singers were deliberately advanced because producers believed their auditions would make entertaining television. These people would walk into the room thinking this could be the beginning of their career. Then they would be rejected, mocked, and broadcast to millions. And one of them was Paula Goodspeed. She was born Sandra McIntyre and grew up in Maine. By the time she appeared on American Idol, however, she was using the name Paula Goodspeed. The name immediately stood out for one very obvious reason. Paula Goodspeed was an enormous fan of one of the judges, Paula Abdul. Abdul's debut album was released when Goodspeed was 10 years old. Later accounts claimed her admiration began around this period and gradually became central to her dream of becoming a pop singer herself. What's certain is that Goodspeed had been drawing Abdul since childhood, creating pictures that she described as life-sized portraits, and at some point during her teenage years, Sandra became Paula. It was widely suggested that she changed her first name because of Abdul. Her niece, Sonia McIntyre, later disputed that explanation, saying that her aunt simply liked the name Paula. But whatever the original reason, by the time Goodspeed reached American Idol, the similarities were impossible to ignore. In August 2005, Goodspeed attended an American Idol. 1 month later, she finally reached the televised judges' audition, and then she walked in to face the judges. Almost immediately, Simon Cowell commented on the resemblance between the two Paulas.
Hi.
Hi, come on in.
How are you?
Nervous.
What's your name?
Paula.
Paula.
And my name.
You had it first, so okay.
There's a similarity here.
Huh?
More than just the name. Like I said, there's a similarity.
There is.
Really?
Okay.
I see it, definitely.
I take it as a compliment, because you're beautiful.
No, I meant
okay?
it as a compliment, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And what are you going to sing?
Proud Mary by Ike and Tina Turner.
Fabulous.
Then she began singing. The performance did not go well. Her delivery was loud, strained, and badly received by the panel.
What was that? But I don't think any artist on earth could sing with that much metal in your mouth anyway. You have so much metal in your mouth.
She's got braces. It's not so much metal.
Yeah, but it's metal.
It's braces.
Yeah.
People have them.
People
Yeah,
have
but
braces.
yeah, but can you sing with all those in?
Yes.
Yeah, people can.
That's like a bridge. I mean, it's...
What?
Could I do another song to show you something different?
No, no.
After leaving the room, Goodspeed became angry and defensive. She admitted that some notes had been pitchy, but insisted she wasn't going to stop singing simply because the judges disliked her voice. What viewers didn't know was that Paula Abdul apparently already knew who Goodspeed was. According to Abdul, Goodspeed had been sending disturbing letters, emails, and messages through her fan club for 17 or 18 years. Abdul said there had been restraining orders at certain points. Abdul also claimed she immediately recognized Goodspeed when producers prepared to bring her into the audition room. She said she begged them not to allow it. According to Abdul, she explicitly warned them that Goodspeed was a stalker and said she was physically shaking before the audition began.
I said, this girl is a stalker of mine, and please do not let her in. And there were people, everyone knew, I mean, I was shaking, and they thought it would, for entertainment value.
Who's they?
Producers.
You mean they put you in peril because it would be fun?
Fun for them to cause me stress.
Abdul claimed that her objections were ignored because producers saw entertainment value in placing the two women together. American Idol executive producer Ken Warwick strongly disputed that account. Warwick said he had been in the room and knew nothing about Goodspeed being considered dangerous. He suggested Abdul might have expressed her concerns to security or a junior producer, but insisted she had never warned him or anyone with the authority to stop the audition. But either way, Paula Goodspeed's audition was filmed, edited, and broadcast as entertainment. A source close to the singer claimed that in the 3 years after the Idol audition, Goodspeed sent Abdul more than 100 letters, made numerous telephone calls, and appeared uninvited on several occasions. Police later confirmed that officers had been called to Abdul's home multiple times over disturbances involving Goodspeed. A law enforcement source also said Goodspeed was known to the Los Angeles Police Department's Threat Management Unit, which handled suspected stalking cases. Abdul claimed Goodspeed appeared at another Idol audition in Las Vegas and eventually managed to follow her home. Abdul also alleged that some of the later letters included naked photographs, threats, and a disturbing reference to Abdul becoming a guardian angel in heaven. Then, Abdul received a bouquet of flowers. The attached note was signed, Love JT. JT Torregiani was Abdul's boyfriend at the time, and the message said that he hoped she was doing well before providing what appeared to be his new mobile number. Abdul called Torregiani and asked why he had changed it, but he hadn't. Abdul immediately realized that the flowers had actually been sent by Goodspeed. The apparent attempt to impersonate someone close to her terrified Abdul. In November 2008, Goodspeed's mother reported her missing. She told police that her daughter might be in Paula Abdul's neighborhood and expressed concern. At around 6 that evening, officers arrived near Abdul's home in Los Angeles. Parked only a short distance away was Goodspeed's car. It carried a personalized license plate that was an apparent reference to Abdul, and a photograph of the singer was hanging from its rearview mirror. Inside, officers found Abdul's CDs, pictures, and prescription medication. They also found the body of 30-year-old Paula Goodspeed. In January 2009, the Los Angeles County coroner completed the toxicology investigation and officially ruled that Goodspeed had ended her time on Earth. Paula Abdul was not home when Goodspeed was discovered. In a statement, she said she was deeply shocked and saddened and offered her thoughts and prayers to Goodspeed's family. Abdul later said she stopped sleeping inside the house where the body had been found nearby. However, Goodspeed's family questioned almost every part of the public narrative. Her niece Sonia said Goodspeed had been cheerful during their last conversation and had been making plans to return to Maine. Goodspeed had told her niece that she once encountered Abdul at a Starbucks and had been excited to meet such a major celebrity. Abdul, however, said she had never voluntarily met her outside the Idol audition. Sonia also confirmed that Goodspeed had driven her past Abdul's house a few times during a visit to California, but she said they had simply been looking at the large homes in the area and insisted that her aunt's behavior had not appeared threatening. In October 2021, in Georgia, preparations were underway for America's Got Talent Extreme, a spin-off built around the kinds of dangerous performances that were often too large or unpredictable for the regular show. Rehearsing that day was Jonathan Goodwin. Jonathan had built his entire career around escaping situations that most people would never willingly enter. He was an escapologist and theatrical daredevil, someone who could remain calm while restrained, buried, or surrounded by fire. Jonathan had spent years perfecting this kind of performance. He had starred for 6 years in an award-winning theater production that appeared on Broadway, and in 2019 he reached the final of Britain's Got Talent. But the stunt being rehearsed in Georgia would be the last of his career. Jonathan was supposed to be suspended upside down, around 30 feet above the ground, wearing a straitjacket. On either side of him were 2 suspended cars. While hanging between them, he would have to escape his restraints as the stunt unfolded around him. But then, something went terribly wrong. As Jonathan remained suspended between the vehicles, the 2 cars came together, and he was crushed between them. The cars caught fire, surrounding him with flames, before Jonathan fell from the rig and struck the ground below.
He fell about 40 feet, missed the airbag, landed on his head.
The rehearsal had become a catastrophic accident. Jonathan was rushed to the hospital, and the full extent of his injuries was almost unimaginable. He had suffered third-degree burns. Both of his shoulder blades were broken. His ribs and legs were fractured, and he sustained severe internal organ injuries and eventually lost his left kidney. But the most devastating damage was to his back. Jonathan had broken his spine, and his spinal cord had been dislocated and severed. He had survived the impact, the fire, and the fall, but the damage to his spinal cord left him paralyzed from the waist down. Jonathan was now a paraplegic. For the next 4 months, he remained in the hospital, undergoing treatment for injuries that had affected almost every part of his body. He was finally discharged 5 months after the accident, but he would now require the use of a wheelchair. Jonathan was forced to retire from stunt performing entirely. But Jonathan and his legal team believed this accident wasn't simply an unavoidable consequence of performing a dangerous stunt. They believed more could have been done to protect him. Jonathan began legal action against the producers behind America's Got Talent Extreme, arguing that inadequate safety procedures had contributed to the accident that permanently changed his life. His lawyer accused the entertainment industry of placing profits and television ratings ahead of people's safety. He described the production as rushed and chaotic, claiming it was staffed by people who lacked the necessary experience and expertise to properly manage such a dangerous performance. But what makes the accident even more disturbing is that this wasn't the first time one of Jonathan's televised stunts had come dangerously close to disaster. 15 years earlier in 2006, Jonathan appeared on Death Wish Live, a show showcasing stunts on live TV for entertainment, and he was chosen to open the series. His stunt was called Cheating the Gallows. Jonathan would stand beneath a noose with his hands restrained in cuffs. Instead of falling through a traditional trapdoor, a barrel filled with water would act as a counterweight, pulling the rope upwards and gradually lifting him from the ground. Jonathan had 30 seconds to pick the lock and escape before the noose tightened. The stunt began, and the barrel started filling. Jonathan worked on the cuffs as the rope pulled him upwards, but as the seconds passed, he couldn't open the lock. Soon, his feet were no longer touching the ground. Jonathan could be seen kicking his legs as he remained suspended by the noose. When the 30-second limit was reached, and he still hadn't escaped, a friend rushed in and cut the rope. Jonathan fell unconscious into a pile of cardboard boxes below. The live broadcast abruptly disappeared for around 7 seconds, replaced by a message telling viewers that Death Wish Live would return shortly. When the program resumed, paramedics could be seen treating Jonathan at the scene. He later raised his hand and gave the camera a thumbs up. Jonathan later said that people had warned him the stunt was dangerous and stupid, and admitted that they had turned out to be right. In 2013, a young woman named Qandil Baluch walked onto the stage of Pakistan Idol, hoping to prove that she could become a singer. But the audition didn't go the way she wanted. Her singing was rejected. The panel struggled to take the performance seriously. And when she was told that she wouldn't be moving forward, Qandil refused to quietly accept the decision. She protested and she had to be escorted away from the stage. But the rejection did something completely unexpected. It went viral. People shared the footage across the internet and searched for the strange woman they had just seen on television. Qandil hadn't made it through Pakistan Idol, but she had still managed to capture the country's attention. And soon, the failed audition turned her into something Pakistan had barely seen before, a celebrity created almost entirely through social media. But long before Pakistan Idol, Qandil had already been through a deeply painful period of her life. In 2008, when she was only 17 years old, she was married to a local man, who was also her mother's cousin. They had a son together, but Qandil later described the marriage as forced and abusive. She claimed that her husband tortured her throughout the relationship, and people had noticed old cigarette burns on her arms. After around 2 years, she fled. She eventually left her son with his father and moved towards a new life in Karachi. She reinvented herself, and after Pakistan Idol gave her an audience, she made sure that audience didn't forget her. She posted photographs, videos, and comments about her everyday life. She spoke about her rights as a Pakistani woman, performed songs, and discussed subjects that women in the country were often expected to avoid publicly. Her posts were deliberately provocative, and they worked. At one point, Qandil became one of the 10 most searched people on the internet in Pakistan, but her fame came with an enormous amount of hatred. Her pictures and videos were considered bold and outrageous by conservative sections of Pakistani society. Her pages attracted huge numbers of people, many of whom seemed to follow her only so they could insult her. She was receiving death threats. She publicly asked the government for security. According to contemporary reports, that protection was not provided. At around the same time, private documents revealing her real identity began appearing in the media. Her birth name, family background, and home region were exposed. Her former husband also appeared publicly and revealed that she had been married and had a son. And soon, she returned to her parents' home. On the night of July 15, 2016, Qandil was inside the house with her family. Also, there was her brother, Muhammad Wasim. At some point that night, after other family members had gone to sleep, her brother entered the room where she was sleeping. Qandil was drugged. Then, while she slept, her mouth and nose were held shut. She was asphyxiated. By the time she was discovered, investigators estimated that she had been dead for somewhere between 15 and 36 hours. Qandil Baluch was 26 years old. Her father, Muhammad Azim, reported her death. He then filed a first information report naming two of his own sons. One was Muhammad Wasim, the other was Aslam Shaheen, who Qandil's father alleged had encouraged the killing. In the report, he claimed that the murder involved both so-called family honor and money. Qandil had become a major financial provider for the household. Her father later said that she had supported the entire family, including the brother who killed her. He publicly condemned his sons, adding that he would neither forget nor forgive her brutal murder. Police began investigating the death from multiple angles, including the possibility that it was an honor killing. Muhammad Wasim was arrested. Then he confessed. Speaking at a press conference arranged by the police, he admitted that he had killed his sister while everyone else was asleep. He said Qandil's behavior had brought disrepute upon the family and that he could no longer tolerate it, and claimed that his other brother had not been involved. He showed little remorse. The killing was presented as an act committed to defend the family's honor. But there was no honor in what happened. Her death triggered outrage throughout Pakistan and beyond. It also exposed a major weakness in the country's legal system. At the time, Pakistan's laws allowed the relatives of a murder victim to forgive the person responsible. In cases of honor killings, this created an obvious loophole. The killer was often a member of the victim's family, and the people legally entitled to forgive the killer belonged to that same family. This meant that a brother could murder his sister, receive forgiveness from their parents, and potentially escape the full punishment for the crime. Authorities attempted to prevent that from happening in Qandil's case. The intention was to stop the relatives from simply pardoning the accused and ending the prosecution. Muhammad Wasim was found guilty of murdering his sister. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. But the story still wasn't over. Despite Qandil's father originally saying that he would never forgive the murder, her parents later submitted statements forgiving their son and seeking his acquittal. Their attempt was initially rejected. Then, in February 2022, an appeals court overturned the conviction. After serving only around 3 years following his sentencing, the man who had publicly confessed to killing his own sister was released. The family's pardon played a central role in the appeal, even though Qandil's case had once been presented as an example of how the forgiveness loophole could be prevented. In 2013, 22-year-old Gibran Martiz appeared on La Voz Mexico, the Mexican version of The Voice. He had been singing since childhood and gradually turned it into a serious pursuit. The judges turned for him, and he advanced through the battles and into the knockout stage, where he was eliminated, ending his run on the show. He continued recording music and kept pursuing his dream. In January 2014, Gibran moved into an apartment in Jalapa, the capital of Veracruz. He had reportedly been living there for only 1 day. Sharing the apartment was a 17-year-old friend with whom Gibran had begun working on new music. But on the afternoon of January 7th, a group of armed men arrived outside the residence. Witnesses said they were wearing police uniforms and traveling in vehicles belonging to the Veracruz State Police. The men forced their way into the apartment, restrained the young men, and removed them from the building. Gibran reportedly struggled as he was taken outside, but he was forced into a police vehicle and driven away. Gibran had not been invited to a police station, and he had not been told why he was being detained. When Gibran stopped answering his phone, his family became concerned. He regularly communicated with his father, Efrain, through WhatsApp, so the sudden silence was completely out of character. His relatives became even more alarmed when Gibran failed to appear for a performance he had arranged at a nightclub. His father traveled to Jalapa and began searching. His family searched hospitals and police stations, but authorities claimed there was no record of his detention, even though witnesses had identified state patrol cars. His brother Eric then posted an image of the alleged patrol vehicle on Facebook. Still, no one in authority would tell the family where Gibran was. 5 days after his disappearance, his family publicly appealed for help. Only weeks earlier, viewers had watched Gibran sing on national television. Then, on January 18th, police received reports of gunfire near the Huatusco Conejos highway. According to the initial official account, officers arrived and encountered 2 suspicious vehicles. The people inside allegedly refused to allow an inspection and opened fire. Police returned fire and eventually gained control of the scene. 2 presumed criminals were reported killed. Authorities then searched the area and the vehicles. They claimed to have recovered weapons, drugs, bulletproof vests, and fake police uniforms. They also found 2 more bodies. One was Gibran Martiz. The other was his teenage friend, whose identity was initially withheld from much of the media because he was underage. He was later identified as Sergio. Both young men had been shot, and the official story appeared to explain everything. Gibran had supposedly been kidnapped by criminals impersonating police officers. Those criminals had then killed their captives before dying during a confrontation with the real authorities. Gibran's father didn't believe any of it. Efrain had already gathered testimony from the people who watched his son being taken. The witnesses had identified the vehicles as genuine police units, and the family possessed photographs of the patrol involved. Then Efrain went to report the evidence to Internal Affairs, and according to him, he saw the same patrol vehicle parked inside a police facility. Efrain publicly accused the Veracruz State Police of kidnapping and killing Gibran. But something else happened after Gibran's death. Photographs began circulating anonymously online. In the images, Gibran could be seen posing with high-caliber weapons. Some reports also described pictures associating him with drugs. It created the impression that Gibran may have been involved with criminals. His father said this was completely misleading. According to the father, the weapons had been props used while recording promotional material for Gibran's album titled Playboy. He claimed the photographs had been stored on Gibran's phone, a phone that should have been in the possession of the people who detained him. The photographs were later reportedly distributed through email accounts linked to the press office of Veracruz Governor Javier Duarte. For Gibran's family, it looked like someone was not only attempting to hide what had happened, but also trying to damage his reputation after he could no longer defend himself. Initially, Governor Duarte's administration rejected Efrain's accusation that police officers had taken his son, but the denial didn't last. Under growing pressure from the family, witnesses, and the public, another press conference was held. This time, the government admitted that 7 members of the state's police had been involved in the detention. The officers had admitted detaining the young men, but there was still no official arrest report of Gibran. The investigation later uncovered an even more disturbing piece of evidence. Mobile phone records indicated that one of the victims' phones remained active after the disappearance. Its location was traced to coordinates corresponding with the El Lancero Police Academy, a major facility operated by the Veracruz Public Security Ministry. The phone appeared to have been inside a police facility after authorities claimed they knew nothing about the missing men. In 2015, Mexico's National Human Rights Commission concluded that state police had detained and forcibly disappeared Gibran and 2 other young men. 2 were found dead. The 3rd remained missing. There had already been warnings that something was deeply wrong inside that police force. Only a few months before Gibran disappeared, a 10-year veteran of the Veracruz Public Security Ministry's Highway Patrol made allegations against members of the same unit. She said 4 masked officers seized her as she left work, forced her into a taxi, and took her to the El Lancero Police Academy. She claimed she was held there for 4 days. According to her account, she was handcuffed, blindfolded, beaten, and tortured. The officers allegedly pressured her to accept an accusation of marijuana possession and threatened both her and her family when she refused. She later displayed visible injuries during a press conference. The fight for accountability continued for years. In 2017, 3 former Veracruz officers were arrested again and charged in connection with the forced disappearances. Then, in July 2023, 3 former officers were each sentenced to 21 years in prison for forced disappearance and homicide. They were 3 subordinates from the group of 7 officers originally implicated. The legal situation of the others was not publicly explained in the report announcing those sentences, and the 3rd young man taken during the operation was still listed as missing. In March 2015, the 2nd season of The X Factor New Zealand had reached its first live show, and 25-year-old Joe Irvine had just performed a song in front of the entire country. As he stood on stage, he prepared himself to hear what the judges thought of his performance. Now, compared with the other chapters in this video, what happened to Joe may not seem truly disturbing, but I think it is worth including because the footage is still deeply uncomfortable to watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am just going to state the obvious. We have a doppelganger in our midst. As an artist who respects creative integrity and intellectual property, I am disgusted at how much you have copied my husband. From the hair to the suit, do you not have any value or respect for originality? You're a laughingstock. It's cheesy, it's disgusting.
Cleopatra?
I personally to be sitting here in your presence, having to even dignify you with an answer of my opinion.
I'm all right.
Yeah, Joe,
Thank
to
you,
me,
Natalia. You're beautiful.
To me, it just feels a little bit cheap and absurd. I mean, it's like Norman Bates dressing up in his mother's clothing. It's just a little bit creepy, and I feel like you're going to stitch someone's skin to your face and then kill everybody in the audience. But, do you?
I'm gonna say it. It's disgusting. You make me sick. It's absolutely disgusting. You have no identity. I can't stand it. I'm ashamed to be here.
I think I look really good, and
I think you look good because you're dressed as my husband.
Actually, you're dressed better than her husband.
thank you now.
Before the live shows began, Joe had spoken about feeling like an outcast when he was younger. He said he moved out of home at 15, spent periods living in caravan parks or his car, and used alcohol to cover his emotional pain. He had also experienced dark thoughts in the past, but singing helped him find stability. Joe continued smiling until the broadcast ended, but the expression on his face made the entire scene even harder to watch. It looked as though he was trying to process why two judges had suddenly decided to humiliate him on live television. Only days earlier, Joe had explained how long it had taken him to believe in himself after years of feeling isolated and being told he couldn't succeed. And now two of the people that were paid to guide aspiring performers were tearing him apart in front of a national audience. The following morning, less than 24 hours after the incident, Natalia Kills and Willie Moon were fired. The two judges later apologized directly to Joe, saying they had been encouraged to be outspoken and had allowed the situation to go too far. Thank you for watching. Here's a video YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Consider subscribing for more similar content. Stay safe, and until next time.